No, I'm sorry. We're happy to support Brent to go and have the discussion with those external stakeholders, but we just want the money ring fenced for a prior discussion of what, if there's opportunities or not. Okay?
Thank you, Brent.
Is that what we all agree to?
We also wanted what was the purpose of the collection of the rates, and to ensure that what we intend to do comes within that definition of what we set out for. So because targeted rate can only be used for what it was collected for. So we want to make sure that that's in scope.
Absolutely. As I said before, the purpose of that rate, support the rural sector, farmers and growers to meet their obligations under farm planning and freshwater farm planning obligations. Because effectively what's decided now is creating some work for myself and Chris and Warren, because if I'm going to roll into a bank, I think they're going to want to see somebody like Warren saying, hey, will you join us if we're able to seed something. So sorry, Warren, I think I might have to get some appointments in your diary.
More. Yeah. Right, thank you very much. So we've got to the end of that. Thank you, councillors, for coming together in that space. Back to you, Janine, for your next
Q into this conversation with a bit of trepidation. Ooh, okay, well, buckle in. So the prior year surplus. So this is a matter that we try and provide really good visibility to the council on through obviously Finance and Performance Committee. We did reference it in the adoption of the 24-25 annual report, and we actually included some commentary on this and the potential utilisation of it in our 25-26 annual plan consultation document as well. While it wasn't a consultation topic, we included a story in there. So at the end of the 24-25 financial year, we were reporting an unallocated surplus of just over $2.5 million. To be clear on the source of those funds, these are general ratepayer funds. So they're not targeted rate, because we've obviously got all of our reserves and jam jars set aside to ensure that the purpose that we collect those rates for is what they get spent on. And so we can expect some additional funds to be added into that $2.5 million once the organisation change costs are finalised. The previous council had approved up to $1 million from the prior year surplus to support that organisation change process. So there's probably in the order of something like $400,000 that will come back from there. I guess similarly, it's similar to the last conversation where we talk about the return of funds. I guess previously the way that this council has decided to return these surplus funds to our community is through the funding of additional pieces of work that are fixed term in nature and align with furthering council strategic direction. And so there were 4 business cases approved in the 2024 LTP that were actually funded through the prior year surplus. So they were around things like a water security plan, development, those early steps in terms of the spatial strategy that Tracy talked about previously, Lake Waikare, Whangamarino action planning, and a review of funding of critical infrastructure. So that's the way that we've been returning surplus funds in previous years. But aware that through the recent triennial elections, some around the table have campaigned on returning these surplus funds to ratepayers. So hence we're here today. So in terms of the budget that we have presented for you, that doesn't assume any return of these funds. So we know it's an issue or a matter that needs to be resolved, but we haven't made any assumptions around that. I've just noted there for completeness that the simplifying local government proposal, as we've talked about and as per the DIA presentation, does require regional councils to fund the transition to a new structure. And so stepping onto that thin ice, potentially the prior year surplus would be one avenue to be able to do that without compromising other work programs or imposing additional cost. But just a comment and observation. We've noted two ways, assuming that council is wanting to return the funds, there are two pathways that we could follow. Either it can be a reduction to the general rates revenue that we assess in 26-27. So effectively, we release the reserve. The funding that we take for 26-27 is $3 million less. So we'd be running an unbalanced budget. And that would also create us a funding deficit going into the next planning cycle. Or the other avenue is to consider a remission of the general rate for 26-27 via the general remission policy. So that would be a remission to each of our 220,000 regional ratepayers that we'd just need to work through a process by which we can do that. It sounds simple. I have had some concerns expressed by the team and the mechanism to do that, probably just because we've never had to do it before, but we can work through that. The estimated value of the remission, as noted there, would be based on the 2.5 million, about $1 per 100,000 of a property's capital value at the $3 million after we've righted the organisation change funding, that would take that to about $1.14 per 100,000. So overall, not a significant value at an individual property level, but I understand the principle that councillors are working to.
Thanks, Janine. We'll jump to questions and comments. Angela.
Yeah, thank you. Janine, I do recall from previous years that you mentioned the impact it would have on future rates, and then you talked about the funding deficit.
Mm-hmm.
What could you go into a bit more detail about what that would look like for the LTP?
Yeah, so in essence, if we applied it to offset the rates, that means that the rates that we set for this year are $3 million lower. And so then whatever's projected in terms of an increase in into the LTP, first of all, the assumption is you're needing to fill that $3 million gap, plus whatever those cost pressures may be that come through in 27-28 in the 2027 LTP. Obviously don't have a crystal ball for that, and we don't even know the basis on which we'd be doing an LTP at the moment, but the principle is you'd be operating under an operating deficit for 26-27 of $3 million.
Okay, so just keeping in mind we're moving forward into more rates capping, well, more intense.
Yeah.
What sort of an impact would returning this have on that, just hypothetically?
Yeah, so it gives you a lower starting point against which that cap would work. So your $3 million sort of behind. So your increase would be 4% less than 4% on the $3 million less than it would otherwise be.
Okay. Jen.
Yeah, thanks. I just wondered, I've got two questions and then a comment. Wasn't it $1.90 or something last time we talked about it?
That was before there were some decisions taken through the annual plan to allocate some of the funding.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So that's where those numbers
Yep.
didn't line up. Okay. And I hadn't thought so much about the GST part before, but the money was collected and GST paid on it.
Mm-hmm.
But what gets returned would be without GST.
Oh, no, we would put GST on it. So I've just quoted the
Okay,
number
just
as
checking that.
excluding GST, but GST would be applied.
Thank you. And then the only other point was, look, the the option you give, if it was given back as a remission, I'm not in favour of administrative workload to do this, so I'd definitely go more for A rather than B if it was to happen. I'm just, yeah, really mindful that three things. Mindful number of people campaigned on returning it, so they've obviously painted themselves in a corner there. But now there's a rates capping consideration and new information like that, which severely restricts this council ability to do things that we might want, whether it's civil defence or transport, whatever it might be. And then on top of that, we had 2 submissions after the fight to get it into the annual, the long-term plan to even be raised with community and discussed. 2 submissions on the topic, and both of them said, keep it for your strategic intents, because the logic of charging me less in 1 year and charging me exactly the same more the next year to make the budget work doesn't make sense. So I'm still at this point on the side of not returning the prior year surplus, but for those reasons and all the legislative stuff you've outlined since then, that also wasn't the case last time.
Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Janine. I was one of those who campaigned on giving it back. It's not our money, it's the ratepayers' money. They deserve it back, and I didn't have any opposition to that out on the campaign trail. Quite the opposite, in fact. In terms of the methodology, I suggest it should go back as a rebate, so it had no flow-on effect in terms of future rates. But I'm more than happy for it to be remitted if that's the way it should be, and then that sets a new base level for staff to work to in future years when we're doing our budgets. So I'm in favour of giving it back, and I understand the issues involved regarding the extra work involved to do it as a rebate, which would be my preferred methodology, Janine. But I'm happy if it throws through into next year's budget and we have to work that much harder to reduce the costs accordingly, because that's the option. I'm not happy to have it flow into next year. And that was the argument that was promoted around the table when we lost the vote last time. Rebate is the way out of that. But if it does create an administrative burden, then I'm happy to take the $3 million off the bottom line and we work to that next year. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Ben.
Yeah, pretty much the same as Chris. So we may be painted in the corner, Jennifer, but it's a happy corner. So
That's all right. That's what campaigning's about,
yeah,
right?
So I would definitely vote to give the money back. And I never particularly agreed with the 4.49 million surplus being spent on other things at the time. I would agree. I think the reduction in general rates revenue is the simplest mechanism with a press statement, rather than giving everyone $5 back with a strange note attached to them and extra staff time. As far as the simplifying local government proposal document, I think we talked to Chris about that. There is funds sitting in the regional economic development area that we could look at for whatever funding we have to do for the simplifying local government. I wouldn't use this for that. So, my view.
Thanks, Ben. Gary Maguire.
10,200 people put me in the seat to reduce the rates, and this was a key part of the rates control team. So if there are other things that need to be funded, then I would say go back and ask those ratepayers yourself, because I'm quite prepared to have it returned to where it came from. Thank you.
Noel.
Thank you. Sorry to be distracted over there. I did some work on this a little while ago, and if I find my notes quickly, on a $600,000 property, returning it at 97 cents, that's $5.82, $1.2 million, 11.64, and a $2 million property, we get $19.40 back. I understand rates control campaigned strongly on this point. And they were successful in all but one candidate coming in. So there is a mandate around the room to do it. I'm just going to ask that you think about what $5.82 will do for 600,000. I'm looking at people in Huntly and Narohi and the likes. a small property, Tamaheri, getting $19 back. Farms at 4, 6, 8, it's less than $100. It's the principle, but is it really the right thing to do? We have often seen the one-off costs, and we haven't had to put up rates because we've had a fund. So I leave it to the conscience, particularly of rates control, is if it's an election thing that you want to make sure you give back, and people with integrity would want to do that because that's what they campaigned on. But the reality is it really financially worthwhile? Thank you.
I think what a number of us heard around the communities and stuff, that it's more that moral position than the cup of coffee that may be referred to. Gary.
Well, it's like death by 1,000 cuts. And the cup of coffee analogy. This is one. There are several different places. There's Te Huia, there's this and that, and all sorts of others. So we've got to do what we said that we would do, and that is to get those costs and those rates back down again. And by just going soft on everything here, oh, it's only this, it's only that, we're not doing the job.
Robbie.
Yeah, I support giving the 2.5 million back again, but also it's actually it's some of these projects that we decided to do last term, are they actually relevant now? And does some of those things need to be either targeted down to what they can accomplish instead of some of the aspirations that they have that have got out of control that we can't meet anyway, and we're still funding some of these projects? I know it's not in this, but all of these things need to be, we need to get them in tighter and control them better, and the aspirations can't get bigger than the room. So I know that's outside of what we're talking about, but I think there's opportunities to lowering our total expenses for the year out there still. And it's not just the 2.5 million. There's other millions out there that can be saved as well.
Yeah. Gary.
Yeah, so to me, it's probably not so much about returning the 2.5, even though I did stand on the rates control ticket, but it's like any political party to agree to everything. But the real cherry on the cake for me was resetting the budget, Janine, back, taking that 2.5 or 3 million off it, and then as your new baseline, and probably in line with what Robbie said, so yes, you run a deficit budget, but I'd say I'd like to turn that around and put some pressure on management to balance that budget. So it's that resetting of the number that I look at, and then also it's your new baseline.
Yeah, so just to clarify, that resetting of the budget would then happen through the LTP process, not in the annual plan by default of applying this.
Yep. Thank you. I think there's you've got enough information there, Janine, on that particular one. Thank you very much. I believe so.
I think there's a clear direction in terms of the return. There's a little bit of a split between the remission versus offset to rates, but I'm hearing a preference towards the offsetting of rates.
We clarify that would it be helpful if we clarified the rate, the WACC gets back with a straw poll?
No, it's the mechanism.
It's the mechanism. So I think the mechanism we can look back in February. Yes.
Yeah. So
it's just what we build into.
It's what the assumption that gets built into the draft budget. If it's an offset to the general rate, obviously that's going to reduce the 4.8, 4.9 down by about 1.5%, I think.
Yeah, and I think my preference at this stage, Janine, is just let's leave that sitting to one side while we carry on. Because it's not applied in what we have at the moment.
Correct.
So let's keep going with what we've got applied and how we work through that, knowing that this is just sitting off to one side.
Cool.
Thanks. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I just wonder whether the clarity would be for them if we're either reducing the rates or remitting the rates. That's the question.
Well, we can, as I just said, we can see that in February.
Yeah, so what we can come back with in February is the numbers, as we've got an updated version of today's numbers, which doesn't make any provision for this. And then we can work the numbers for you of going, if it's a remission, it's no change on your rates. If it's applied off the general rate, what would that look like?
Yep.
So you've got all of the information in front of you when you need to make that decision.
Yeah, no.
So I think Keith alluded to, that's what I took from him very early on this morning. So could we see an Excel spreadsheet that we could refer to at any time? And once we make a decision, it's basically summarize this and you've got to your 4.8%. So then when we come to decision making in February and the likes, is that if we make a decision, bang, Janine can put the figures in and we can see the impact on that.
And that's what Chris outlined is what's going to happen.
So that's the way we normally track the impact, and I do have a version of it that is in terms of tracking some changes.
Yeah, I don't think that we saw it as much as I thought we should have seen it last time. So I'll probably be asking to see it more often, probably after each decision. Right. So thank you.
Yep, no, that's cool. I'm not sure. It depends on how many decisions you're making that are different to the position that's been reported. But yep, we track those all the time through the meeting. Okay, so the next session is really getting into the detail of the budget. So I'm not sure whether this is a good time for a break. I'd circulated the slides. First slides, which we can hopefully romp through, are the budget assumptions, and then it's into each of the directors presenting the key differences of the budgets in their areas as it's set out in the report. So that'll be the chance for councillors to indicate support or otherwise, or further information that they need, as well as in some cases there are some changes that have been made since the report was pulled together.
Yep, thanks. I think it's a natural point to break at, Janine, and we'll be back at 1 o'clock.